Isn't it amazing that as we are growing up, as we're being raised, what we were taught was a little bit upside down? Not wrong, but upside down. Think about everything you were taught when you were growing up: reading, writing, mathematics, history, science, how to drive a car, how to do your laundry, how to file taxes, how to perform in a job interview, good manners at the table. All of it good stuff that I've taught my own child because it's important to navigating this material world. But also, let's think of the things that we were not taught. What do you do with grief when maybe a parent dies or a pet dies or you have your first heartbreak? What do you do? Do you even use the word grief? How about understanding why we might react a certain way we're reacting? Were we taught to look at that? Did our parents say, hey, that's an odd reaction? Let's think about it. We weren't taught maybe what friendships or what relationships feel exactly right. They feel like home. And what relationships feel like a drain or feel like something's very off, like when you're getting teased or bullied or people are making inappropriate jokes, but you're not really taught to look at those inner reactions. We might not have been taught about like identity formation, like building character and actually have it spoken to us in those ways. How about this one? What the body is telling us. What the body is telling us when it has some alarm signals with headaches or coughing or digestive issues, how the body might be messaging us before we can actually put words to it. We literally have instruction manuals for everything. I was just setting up my printer, instruction manuals, new microwave, instruction manuals. You go to an Airbnb, instruction manual. You get a manual when you buy your car. Almost all of our external systems have instruction manuals, but it's not likely that you or that I was handed an instruction manual on our internal system. Welcome back to Heaven on Earth podcast, where psychotherapy meets spirituality, where your inner journey becomes outer abundance, and where together we explore the visible and invisible dimensions of being human. I'm your host, Claudia Cauterucci. In the last episode, we talked about emotional illiteracy. It's basically collectively the profound gap between the lives that we're living, the lives that we're living on planet Earth, and the language that we don't have to understand our inner experiences. So today I'm going to keep on the same track, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper because I feel like this is one of the pieces of work that I enjoy doing the most, the idea of going inside, and that we have all sorts of brokers to do that. Meditation is one, psychotherapy is one, journaling is one, walking in nature is one, is the idea of finding balance by living our external world, but looping it, being in a constant loop with our inner world. And I feel like when we feel imbalanced, it's because we're constantly responding to the external world without checking in on our internal world. And our internal world becomes an anchor of sorts, right? And that's where the balance comes in. But hold on, I'm jumping ahead. So we become adults, we become accomplished, capable, resilient. That's a word that's been being used a lot right now. Successful and helpful genuinely to the people around us. And yet there is still confusion inside of us. Why do I react this way? Why does this relationship feel so familiar? Maybe in the toxic ways, in the good ways. Why? Why do I know exactly what I need to do, but still find myself unable to do it? Why does life feel so full and yet so empty at the same time? Why do I adore, I love, feel safe with my partner and still feel distracted by someone over here? Why can I perform super well, beautifully, in fact, but still feel like I'm disconnected from myself or feel like I'm faking it? Like it's not real. And today I'm proposing that maybe an honest answer to all of that is like, hey, we were not given the manual. We don't have the instructions. And I think instructions just feel delicious. They feel like secure attachment. I went to the doctor the other day, and that doctor first described what was going to happen. Then, as they were doing it, they were describing what was happening as they were doing it. Amazing. I felt safe and stable and that I was in good hands just because of instructions. Yeah, we were taught subjects, but we were rarely taught about ourselves. And I've been doing this for a long time. I've been clinical psychotherapist for over 25 years, but also I have been someone who has self-reflected all of my life. I started journaling when I was like 7 or 8 years old. Been asking myself the questions. So therapy rooms, retreats, group rooms, identity shifts, breakdowns, breakthroughs, heartbreaks. I've kept picking up on something that gets clearer and clearer and clearer. We're not missing intelligence, although it helps. We're certainly not missing information. We have a lot of information. Usually, what we're doing, whether it be in therapy rooms or just in personal life, is we're trying to navigate all of these situations, life information, everything that's getting thrown at us using only one part of ourselves. We might get that we're thinking about it. Are we aware of what we're feeling about it? Not just as a reactive response, by the way, as a fully balanced, holistic response to what we're experiencing. Are we interpreting what we are feeling? So we're just pushing forward. And maybe our bodies are the ones telling us, stop, 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 listen, listen, listen. And there is a point that life and these messages ask us for integration. And it tends to ask us for integration through a very, very loud message like a diagnosis, a relationship ending, a 3 a.m. wake up where you're just ruminating, a panic attack. And those are ways that your body and that your human system is saying, hey, listen to me. It might be the hangover you have after raging at someone the day before, or drinking too much, or thinking that you can keep handling things without expressing yourself. So many examples. And maybe this is perhaps why healing so often can feel spiritual, even to people who don't expect it to be, or who don't identify themselves as having spiritual inclinations. I know for sure that every person I've ever sat with in all the formats has started asking the invisible questions, right? Starting with, who am I? Underneath all of these roles. Why do I keep repeating this? What part of me have I abandoned? Was I complicit in that breakdown? I love my mother, but I have these strange memories. This is why I was so attracted and deeply believed in psychology, because it gave me a language and it gave me a structure that could hold very complicated human issues and themes. And it started off this exploration of becoming really curious about all the other dimensions that we as humans have. And I'm certainly not the first. We have centuries and centuries and centuries of people asking these questions about meaning, about wonder, about purpose, about healing. about our world? And these questions were asked before we could have any understanding, but it's how we got to understanding things. Humans are biological, psychological, relational, and meaning making. And in whatever word you want to use for it, humans are spiritual. And what I mean by spiritual is all the ways that we live on planet Earth through invisible means. Feelings are invisible until they become a behavior. Thoughts are invisible. Experiences, internal experiences, are invisible. We don't see it. And definitely, right? Being in touch with the divine, with angelic frequencies, with the quantum field, invisible. So let me propose an idea today. Humans are constantly moving through different systems that speak to each other constantly. And a lot of us were not taught how to listen to that conversation that's going on between us. In fact, many of us are taught to keep all of those conversations separate. And that's what we might call disassociation. We might call it compartmentalizing. We might call it disavowing parts of ourselves. Jung would have called it putting it into the shadow. So what if we work with it as the human operating system, our operating system, right? AI operating system. Apple has an operating system. So many operating systems out there. Well, yeah, the human operating system. So let's just review them. Operating system number one, mental, the mind, our gorgeous mind. In the mind, we hold our identity, we hold our stories, we hold our beliefs, our paradigms, we hold attention, we hold meaning, we hold strategy for decision making. We hold strategies for survival. We hold the lens through which we see everything that is happening to us. And those could be called schemas in psychology. There are neural networks from neuroscience. Same idea. We put on a pair of glasses according to our histories, and that's how we think about ourselves, about what's happening to us, and about the world. Most of us were taught to think of thoughts as facts. So sometimes we'll get a stimuli, something will happen to us, and we take it in, or the way we assimilate it is as a fact, as truth. Thoughts are often interpretations of all the programming that preceded them, all of our personal and collective programming according to our race, our ethnicity, our country, our culture, our religion, our politics, where we went to school. Those are all layers and layers and layers of programming that each of us has in our mental operating system. And these are inherited from things that we were told about ourselves, about the world, about what's possible. This is where limiting beliefs come in. And I describe these as introjects. These were all told to us before we really had the capacity to decide whether this fit us or not. We were just absorbing, taking all of this information in according to where we grew up and how we grew up. So the mental operating system is creating stories, but stories that were written by other folks, by our parents, by their parents. We were just handed over these stories, these belief systems. And the mental operating system is running constantly all the time. And most of us aren't looking at the software. We don't likely ask, hey, what thoughts are running me? What thoughts are controlling me? What thoughts are operating? Ask yourself. Operating system two, emotional, feelings, needs, connection, play, trauma, fear, rage, disgust, relational intelligence, or the lack thereof, the capacity to attune to ourselves into others. And this is maybe the least understood of all the others. Most people were taught to manage feelings, to move past them, to buck up, to vent them, to keep them proportionate, to dismiss them, to pretend they weren't there, to not make a scene, to overuse them, to manipulate with them. But very few of us are taught to understand our feelings, understand them as messengers, because emotion is information. Emotion is movement. Emotion is an activation. Emotion is data. It's data of what's been violated, what's longed for. It's data for what needs attention. It's data for safety and communion and intimacy. It's data for play. It's data for trust. And when data is consistently dismissed by the systems that taught us to dismiss them, and later by ourselves, they don't get dismissed into like a big black hole. No, they find a place to live. I've been talking about it a lot. They will sneak up on you. They will ambush you. They will insist on being hacked. So trust and believe that your emotions are going to show. So maybe you're already asking the question, how is that true for me? Operating system 3, physical, the body. This real estate we've got going, this suit, this capsule that we have, the nervous system, embodiment. We've got here some of the best wisdom that lives inside of us that has its own language. As Bessel van der Kolk wrote, the body keeps the score. Because your body remembers things. It memorizes. Your body memorizes things that your mind and your emotions have not found the words for. Layers of memory in and your body has a whole bunch of defense mechanisms that it learned decades ago while you were growing up. And these were strategies or defenses that made sense at the time. These were actual adaptations, but they might be creating a lot of confusion right now. They worked then. Do they work now? And our body is such a beautiful vehicle for us because it will adapt, and adjust forever for all this stuff. We just keep sort of cluttering it with unprocessed thoughts, emotions, behaviors. So your body speaks constantly, and the language it uses is tension, fatigue, sometimes resistance, relief when we feel safe. Your body is always expressing itself to us. And I'm a holistic psychotherapist, so I am constantly using all the ways that your body might be speaking to you. And listening to our bodies, not mystical. And thank God, science and health insurance and doctors are catching up to the fact that we are a holistic system. It's practical. It is actually one of the most direct routes of self knowledge available to human beings. So, what is your body telling you? Yes, all the expressions of it is happening in this physical vehicle, but it's connected to all the other operating systems. So, let's go with operating system 4, spiritual. Meaning, wonder, purpose, guidance, inner knowing, consciousness, connection to something larger than one single belief that there's more to us than just the material. I hold this dimension with a lot of curiosity and a lot of humility, to be honest, and a lot of gratitude. So we're not talking here about me suggesting that there's a particular one way of believing in it or that you should believe in God. None of that is what's on the table. The mechanics of consciousness are for you to sit. What I am here to say is that in all of my internal personal work and clinical work, I have never yet met a human that doesn't arrive to the questions that this dimension asks of us. Who am I really? What am I here to do? Why am I here? What's wanting to emerge from me that hasn't yet? Why do I feel so connected to something I can't name? Why do I feel protected? This search for meaning is a spiritual search. And these are questions for anyone who is paying attention. We have a lot of ways to answer those questions. Those could be doctrine, those can be science. There's so many ways to answer these questions. But the questions themselves come from our spiritual operating system. And this is a good place to ask what wants to emerge through you, listener. Now, here is where we pull it all together, and it is exciting and powerful. All of these systems are not separate, and yet we treat them as separate, but they're not. They're all connected. It's like they each have their own kingdom, but they're all kingdoms that work together if we allow them to. They're in constant conversation with one another. Thought changes emotion, emotion changes the body changes perception, emotion changes thought. Meaning changes everything. We think that thoughts make us decision makers, but very often it's our emotions, mostly unprocessed emotions, that drive us to make the decisions that we make. And we know that the body drives us to make all sorts of decisions. It's all connected. So when we talk about healing, we're not talking about healing just one thing. At least the way I like to work, as all of you already know, is I like to see the small in the all and the all in the It's about integration. Healing is remembering all the parts of ourselves, integrating all the parts of ourselves, even the icky, gooey, yucky, hateful parts of ourselves. Because remember, it's one rogue cell in our body that feels isolated and gets isolated that becomes cancer. The same is true for everything else. The same is true for a school shooter. Someone gets too isolated in their toxicity, it becomes a collective cancer. Same thing. It all works together. We want all of these four operating systems to work together, speak to each other honestly, rather than one system overriding all the others, because that was the one that we were taught to trust. So maybe what we're really trying to learn, what we're really trying to strive for is the freedom of learning how to listen, how to listen, how to notice to the full range of information that our operating system, made of four, is generating: inner literacy, outer agency. For some of you who have been listening to me for a while, can you hear the winds of the all is in the small is in the all? Nod your head as you're listening. So before I close out, let's talk about one more thing. I just want to tell you, and I warn all my people, listen, the inner world often feels very loud before it feels freer. It's a closet. It's a very, very, very cluttered closet that we haven't organized. We haven't gone in slowly to see, hey, what needs to go, what needs to say, what needs to be metabolized, digested, organized. So, yeah, most people don't go inside because they're afraid of what they'll find. And that makes sense. which is often why we need communities or a guide or a therapist or a mentor, right? And you know that if you've ever opened the door to your own inner life and found it way more crowded and maybe even stinkier than you expected, scarier than you expected, which is very often the case for all of us. Like old emotions, old identities, memories that we really don't want to have again. They seemed like they were filed away permanently, but they're actually running the show of who we are today at work, in our relationships, in our friendships, in our leadership styles. That's normal, actually. That's all the humans for centuries and centuries that didn't know how to use their operating systems, all four of them. A lot of humans have known to use one or three or two, but the idea of using all of them as one coherent system, bam, mind blown emoji. That's what we're here to talk about because awareness is the beginning of choice. And choice, when it's conscious, embodied, informed, changes lives. And as I always say, the freest human is the choosing human. And that's what this human operating system is all about. Not so much optimizing it, although that is a side effect. It's about remembering. It's about remembering that there's so much more of you than being in survival, than being in trauma, than being unconscious, than being achieving, but maybe feeling empty and lonely. Maybe as we start to have this conversation between these four operating systems, something beautiful can emerge. So I hope this episode has landed gently, has tickled your brain. Maybe it's made your heart flutter. Maybe you felt something in your body. And if you're wondering after this episode what it might be like to actually learn the levers, the controls of your inner world, remember last episode, become the DJ of your inner life. I'm building something for that exactly. And it's called the 30-day reset. And it's a derivative of the dynamic meditation method that I created in 2010. Yep. It's time for an upgrade. Some more is coming soon. I'll talk about it. So stay close. Till next time, and barring from the great Casey Kasem, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the skies. Take care of your inner world because your inner world is always shaping your outer world. This is heaven on earth, a portal to possibility.